Exclamation, everybody. Welcome back to Sunday Ramblings in Cube World, or Cube Ramblings, whichever word I want to use today. It is currently Saturday night, May the 31st. Yes, we are done with May. We are into June very, very soon, or we'll be into June when you see this. And you know, stuff is going on. It's getting nice and warm, as I mentioned now. Things are looking up. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. All those things. Oh God. So it's my usual recording time right now. Everything's been going fine so far. I was on Livecraft Mind a little bit earlier, recording an episode to go up tomorrow. It's a talky episode, so I have no idea what it's going to come out to be. I know I talked for about 40 minutes in it, and I'm going to talk for another 40 minutes now. So this is it's going to be interesting. Tomorrow with all these very long recordings going on. But I've been having fun. Lots of things going on. I still have a lot of editing to do here and there. Have another hour or so of Wolfenstein to get done. Which also, by the way, today uploaded my finale of Mirror's Edge. Hope everybody enjoyed it. I really love that game. That game. I'm glad that I revisited that game because it's I really enjoyed it. As I noted at the end there, the controls on the PC were not as good as the controls on the Xbox 360. And to be honest, I'm seeing that as a trend in a lot of these AAA games coming around. I know that it doesn't look like I play a lot of them, but I actually do. And more often I'm seeing that the control schemes seem to be fleshed out for the consoles first, and then the PC's kind of sort of overlooked a little bit. You know, like the best controls you can ever have for a PC version of a game are the keyboard and mouse, in my humble opinion. And the current crop of games don't really do them that much justice. I'm glad that Wolfenstein, The New Order, appears to work really well with the keyboard and mouse, and I'm very happy to see that. It seems like they actually had that in mind when they did their testing. But then I look at something like, I look at the Mirror's Edge stuff, and that was kind of rough around the edges. I mean, I wouldn't play Mirror's Edge with a mouse and keyboard anyway, because of just the weird keyboard combinations you need to do for all the parkour stuff. So I played that on my Xbox 360 pad, but even then, it wasn't as fluid as it was on the 360 itself, on the Xbox 360 itself. So things like that, the shooting mechanics and whatnot, I remember being a lot more stable and whatnot in the console version. Those kinds of things. And I noted all that at the end of my video when I kind of give a roundup of everything that happened, or all my thoughts on it. But what made me think of that too is that I've started. I haven't started recording yet, but I technically did start recording, but it was just a test recording of Watch Dogs. And people who follow me on Twitter know that I kind of complained the other night about the control schemes in Watch Dogs. I tried to use a mouse and keyboard, and that was a big mistake. Like, clearly the controls were not designed for digital inputs. It was more analog inputs. And you can tell that right away because your character starts moving in a very stilted manner, and no matter how high you make the sensitivity on the mouse, it's never good enough. Like, he still feels like he's like a pig through mud. And you see that a lot in the racing games, because they tend to be nowadays optimized for analog inputs. racing wheels and controllers and those kinds of things. But to see that in a sort of GTA style game is very, very depressing. Very, very depressing. I switched over to my Xbox 360 controller for that as I was recording, and that works out a lot better. I mean, it's like night and day. But even then, like, the controls are kind of really weird. Like, I've never played a game like that where you basically have to hold down 2 keys on your controller in order to fire your weapons. Like, one to actually raise your weapon and the other to actually fire it. It's very strange. I don't know what they were really going for in that. I don't know if they did that on purpose because they want you to be stealthy throughout the game. They want to encourage stealth, or if it was just like they had some guy with 20 hands and 3 fingers on each hand, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this works great for me." I don't. I can't fathom it. I'm hoping that's something that they'll fix. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's complained about it. So maybe that's something that they'll fix in a patch or something like that. But really, it's not something that it boggles my mind how they thought that something like that would be fun or would be intuitive, I should say. Maybe not fun's not the right word, but intuitive to the gamer. But I so far what I've seen in Watch Dogs, I like what I've seen so far. It's got the damn hacking meme. Like every meme that you can think of as far as hacking goes, it has in there. So from that perspective, I'll be rolling my eyes quite a lot as I record, making sure to point out that you can't. Suddenly, all hackers are floating through the matrix when they try to hack things, and everything's just lines and all that crap. The one thing that does really annoy me, and I'll talk about this more when I actually start releasing the videos, once I start actually recording for real. One of the things that really annoys me about it, though, is that they've taken a lot of artistic liberties with the videos, the cutscenes. Like every cutscene, they do the old style pixelization, which you used to get, like, I remember from the old full motion video days of games, back in the 90s, like Wing Commander and stuff like that. You because of the high level of compression on the video, you would get a lot of artifacting, and as people moved around, as there was motion in the video, you see a lot of huge pixels as they moved around. Well, they took that and they made it an aesthetic choice in the game for their videos. They actually purposely crapified their videos, their in-game cutscenes to look like that. And it's every time it happens, first of all, it makes me cringe because I remember those days. I mean, I have fond memories of the old full motion video days. I loved those games, even though the video was crappy. I still loved those games, but it's still, to this day, when I see that stuff, I'm like, man, that looks really shoddy and terrible. And they're doing it as an actual choice. They actually made the choice to do that to their cutscenes. And, it's supposed to be like a stylistic choice, and I can see some freaking art director in skinny jeans going, "Oh, this is how I do things. This is how my brain works." And I just go, man, it's annoying as frig. It really is. I'm just watching the cutscenes and I'm like, oh, I gotta just close my eyes and pretend that this cutscene is 100 times better than what it is in the game. I mean, there's a fine line between doing something as an aesthetic choice and just really being freaking annoying with it. And unfortunately, they seem to, in the first couple of minutes, like I played, I think the first half an hour of the game or so. In the first half an hour of the game, it's really annoying, and I find I'm pretty sure when I go to record this for real, I'm probably going to be making all kinds of fun of it, and probably being angry about it. Not angry, but ornery about it. So it's those are my very, very, first half an hour initial impressions of it. Other than that, it plays just like a GTA game, which is kind of what I expected. That's really what I expected out of it. The driving, though, in the game is really terrible. Again, that goes back to the whole controller mechanics and whatnot. It's just all the cars are like on a sheet of ice constantly. they just spin out of control as soon as you tap the controller. But along those same lines, there's an article on Polygon right now, and I'll link you to it because for no other reason than it's just downright hilarious at the stupidity that is portrayed in the video that they link to. The article itself is basically talking about how Glenn Beck, one of those, I guess, kind of, sort of shock jockey type of guys that used to be on Fox News, and now he's on some weird side thing. I don't even know what he is, what channel it's on anymore. But they linked to a video where he's basically doing the old, video games are bad type of thing. And he calls out, I think, Call of Duty, the latest Call of Duty. He says, it's causing, 4 teenagers to go out and try to, commit suicide and do all this stuff because they were avid gamers of it. And, it's all the finger pointing at, it's got to be this, it's got to be that kind of thing by relatively uneducated, completely uneducated commentator. I'm going to try not to turn this into a flame war, though. But he mentioned in the video, he mentions Watch Dogs, and he says, "Oh, this is what are we doing here? We're making this game, and it's our kids are playing this, and our kids are learning how to hack everything." And he holds up like an iPod, or an iPad, I should say. He holds that up to the screen, and he's like, "Oh, they're going to learn. They're learning how to hack this now, and this is cool, and this is awesome, and everything's an anti-hero and all that stuff." And I'm just, it's one of those things where you can't help but just roll your eyes and just laugh at the guy. It's a horrible thing to say, right? Because you really shouldn't laugh at people, but at this point, it's just like, it's so nonsensical what they're saying. It's like, basically, we're teaching kids that if you hit E, or I'm sorry, what is it in game? I think it's X in game, right? With the controller. If you hit X on your controller, you can now hack into ATMs and phones and everything else and learn all this stuff about people. And it's like, that's not how it works. I can assure you, even though I am not a hacker myself, I can assure you that is not how it works. There's a whole lot of Mountain Dew and command line prompts that require you to get to that level of proficiency, or downloading a whole lot of those like low orbit ion cannon stuff that's been already, back orifice and all that crap that's already been designed by someone that actually knows what the hell they're doing, and you're just utilizing them. The old script kiddie thing, let's DDoS something because we can, and it's I don't want to get into my whole spiel about how people are just idiots sometimes. I mean, it's not to say that games couldn't contribute negatively, but they are one variable in an entire cocktail of other variables that come into play to cause some of these tragedies that people like to point out, and these antisocial behaviors. I mean, it's just it's one thing out of many. And it takes somebody who is already susceptible to that kind of suggestion to that for it to actually be effective. You know what I mean? And again, it's not to get on too much of a tangent there, but that it's stuff like that that just kind of it irks me out that there are people out there who are just looking to scapegoat anything that they possibly can. They don't want to put any thought into anything. They just want to scapegoat. They want to point their finger and they want to say that is the problem right there, when in fact they have no effing clue. Or in the case of the Becks of the world, just trying to draw attention to themselves. Like I wouldn't even know. Like I knew that he'd left Fox News, but I wouldn't have even known that he was on some other station if I had seen this stupid video pop up. I would have thought that he had given up the whole thing altogether. Not that I follow him at all, but that's you know, he's been on my radar before for stupidity. So my radar of stupidity. Oh God, I'm just gonna get off that topic because that's gonna be more political meandering that I don't want to deal with, to be honest with you. But I will leave the link to that Polygon article that has the video embedded in it, just so that you can get the hearty laugh that I got, or be just completely ashamed of the fact that you're breathing the same oxygen as that person. Some other news here that has come up, and this came up last week, and I just didn't get a chance to cover it. But there's rumors that have been circulating around the internet through several sources that Twitch is in the preliminary negotiations with Google, i.e. YouTube, to be purchased by Google/YouTube. And there's already lots and lots of speculation and thoughts on the matter, and I kind of wanted to throw my hat into it as well, since I obviously do YouTube stuff and I also do Twitch stuff, though not as much Twitch stuff as I probably want to do, but it's finding the time to do things and also work full time and everything else is quite the challenge. So what do I think about this whole idea that, you know, this merger is going on? Oh, by the way, it would be $1 billion buyout, which obviously Google's got more than enough money to cover that. And that actually doesn't surprise me, because there is a lot of money that can be tied up in that. YouTube itself has a lot of money tied up in it. Twitch, I'm sure, has a lot of money tied up in it. It's very, very popular. It has a lot of room for expansion. So it makes sense to me that they would purchase it for at least $1 billion. But what does that mean? If this were to actually happen, which right now nothing's been confirmed other than potentially there's been some talks going on, but other than that, there's nothing solid has come out yet as to whether or not this is actually happening or not. But which leads me to believe that it's still very, very early in the negotiations, and it got leaked out, and they didn't really want it to be leaked out yet. But what does that mean? What are the positives? What are some of the potential negatives? So from the get-go, some of the positives, YouTube has been trying, and by extension Google, has been trying to get into the live streaming business for a while. You can do live streams on YouTube. There have been a few. I know that OC Remix channel does a lot of live streams every week or so. And I know that Star Citizen, Cloud Imperium Games, the Chris Roberts thing, I know that they did a live stream when at one point in time, they were celebrating the birthday of Cloud Imperium Games, which I think it was their first birthday of the company, and they were having a celebration on YouTube. And the reason I bring that up is that kind of Cloud Imperium Games is because it kind of it shows you sort of the problem, or the fear, I should say, that a lot of us have, which is that stream was actually shut down by YouTube along the way. It was shut down because they started to sing Happy Birthday. And the Happy Birthday song is copywritten. And as soon as that started to kick off, YouTube shut down. The Content ID got a match on it, and the stream was terminated. And that sort of introduces one of the things that people are afraid of, which I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I want to take a step back and say, well, what are some of the positives here? First of all, Google has a ton of infrastructure. And one of the things that Twitch has a desperate need for is infrastructure. The amount of lag in the streams, the amount of buffering that goes on, the amount of drops that happen, just overall performance issues with Twitch is pretty bad, pretty darn bad. And having the access to the data centers and the fat pipes and the network level agreements that are going on between Google and some of the low level network guys like level 3 and other things like that to deliver content delivery networks and all that stuff. Having access to that is a big positive. I mean, you're in terms of if I were to compare Twitch and YouTube on terms of technology right now, as far as networking and performance go, YouTube would be a Ferrari and Twitch would be a stone tablet. That's pretty much the best I can put there. That being said, YouTube does so many things to infuriate its content creators as far as technology goes, that it's almost ridiculous at some points. Just the website weirdness and other things. And Twitch has been having some problems lately too with their website, so I can't really say, hey, Twitch does it better, because they obviously don't. I was just live streaming last night, and there are all kinds of technical glitches going on with the viewer counts and all that stuff. But it also, in that same realm, YouTube still does have a lot of those problems where I know a lot of ISPs throttle YouTube because it is so popular, just like they throttle Netflix, and Netflix has been going around trying to garner deals with, Comcast and Time Warner and other providers, other ISPs, to try to get better content delivery, hardware, content delivery network hardware placed inside those ISPs so that they can get better results, better bandwidth down to the actual customer, instead of getting throttled constantly or just running into just general network congestion. So from that perspective, Google has more of a, more experience with trying to deal with that stuff. Plus, you've got the whole Google Fiber thing, which if that ever takes off, which probably take another 5 to 10 years for that to ever take off, they have the potential to be the be-all and do-all as far as getting content down to your actual computer screens. And of course, Twitch obviously also gets throttled. We know this. We know that this is a fact. It's just when you have somebody like Google backing you up, you have more leverage, more leverage to more stick to swing around. So those are some of the positives. Plus, it does give more of a unified look and feel, and maybe finally we'll put to rest the whole YouTube live stream thing that nobody wants to deal with. The downfalls, though, we know that everybody hates Google Plus for the most part. And I don't think that's going to be as big of a problem, because I think YouTube and Google have kind of acknowledged that nobody wants Google Plus in their YouTube experience. And they've started to make changes to sort of get rid of it, kind of, or make it not necessary. So that, from that perspective, I don't think there's going to be a big of an issue. The biggest issue that's going to come down is the Content ID stuff. Now, we all know from working on YouTube and making YouTube videos that the biggest problem that content creators face is that there's this automated algorithms that run once we upload our videos, that run against our videos looking for copywritten content. And the problem with having an Autobot do that is that more often than not, it has false positives. And there's been plenty of documented false positives. Bird songs being flagged as copywritten. You know, the whole dancing baby thing where there's music playing in the background and it's just a video of a baby dancing, and, you know, it's something that people wanted to share with the world, and they get flagged because of the damn music in the background. Things of that nature, visual artifacts. A lot of Let's Players get hit with, if in particular, like the Saints Row games. I remember hearing that a lot of Let's Players were getting flagged for Content ID because portions of the game appeared in the game's trailer, and they just happened to come upon that portion of the game, and it's, you know, a cutscene, and you can't change the cutscene, right? There's nothing you can really do about it. And those were getting flagged as copywritten because, and all that, you know, then went to Rockstar, all the monetization for that video, because it appeared in one of their, you know, in a segment of one of their trailers. So it's very, very difficult, very difficult waters to navigate, and it's the most infuriating part of it is it's extrajudicial, right? It's not as much as flawed as the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, is. It does provide a judicial means, or a I wouldn't say, maybe not judicial, but it provides a judicial means, but it also provides a means to have, you know, a back and forth. You're not guilty before, you know, you're not presumed guilty before any evidence has been presented of it. It requires the content producers, not producers, the content owners, to be proactive and go out and find the content and then file formal requests. And then there's a period where you can respond to it and have your stuff reinstated until it's all fleshed out and made correct. The Content ID system is beyond that. It's not even something required. It's just something that Google put into place because they're trying to play both sides of the fence, right? They need content owners like NBC Universal and others of that nature. They've been trying for ages to attract them to the YouTube platform, get them to do, you know, monetized channels so they can get a little piece of that pie, right? And increase the YouTube, you know, mantra, I guess, if you will, from being just a thing that, you know, from being YouTube, i.e. something that, you know, regular Joe Schmoes upload videos to something that is also a platform for these larger conglomerates to put their videos on, much like Netflix has kind of been digging into its own content production. Like, for instance, House of Cards and all that stuff, where they're starting to actually produce videos or produce television shows that are showing up just on Netflix, and, you know, kind of expand their horizons. And YouTube and Google have been trying to do that for ages and have failed absolutely miserably to do it, which is why Hulu and Netflix have stepped in and been able to get a piece of that pie, enough to stay afloat. And so this whole Content ID thing, I think, personally, came from that. It came from them trying to expand outward. They said, okay, we're going to appease the content owners like NBC Universal. by doing this thing that is not required by us by law to do. We're going to do it to try to earn brownie points with them, and at the same time, wash our hands of some of the legalities that were plaguing YouTube very early on. Even when Google bought them, they were under heavy scrutiny and heavy lawsuits due to the uploads that were happening on the service. The problem with that is that even though Google has been pretty good about, keeping its subsidiaries, the companies it buys, relatively independent, legally they're not going to be independent. Legally they're going to be the same entity, which means they're going to fall under the same legal team, which means probably if Twitch is actually purchased by YouTube, more than likely we'll start to see Content ID cropping up on Twitch streams, which right now, in order to get a stream removed or taken down, a DMCA request has to be filed, which by the time that gets filed, the stream is over. But that is mostly to cover things like repeat offenders or video on demand when somebody actually recorded a stream and kept it up there, which is it's praised by us content creators because it is what the law requires, and it's not a guilty till proven innocent type of thing. It's procedures have to be followed, and there's a period of time where you can respond to it, and so on and so forth. If the Content ID stuff comes into play and starts to really hamper the streams, it's going to really kill. It's really going to hurt Twitch a lot. It's really, really going to hurt them. In particular, what people are really worried about is esports. Twitch is big on esports. Esports is a big, big segment of Twitch, and you've got these guys that are professional video game players. Your Call of Duty players, a lot of fighting game players, Street Fighter and various things of that nature, who do like the MLG stuff. They're pros. They go out to gaming competitions and so on and so forth. The thing with that is it's still, even though that they're professionals and they're sometimes paid to be out and about at these tournaments, or at least maybe not paid, but some of their expenses are covered, like any professional athlete would be. Any professional athlete that is not mainstream, like surfers and things like that, will probably tell you that having your expenses covered and actually getting enough money from the competitions to live on are two entirely different things, right? It's one thing to have all expenses paid, but it's a completely other thing to try to make it your career, because you still need to make money. Even prize money doesn't last very long. I mean, you get $10,000 of prize money. You can eat for 3 months, right? But then you're off to do something else to try to make up the rest of that, and that's not including taxes and everything else. So it's and you're not eating very well either. You're probably eating ramen noodles, if I'm to be perfectly honest there. So for the esports guys, they've been using a lot of the monetization of their channels, of their Twitch streams, to supplement their income so that they can do it full time. They don't have to have a part-time job necessarily. They might still have one, because I don't know how much exactly they make, but for the most part, they might be able to get away with not having to hold down a full-time or a part-time job and being able to focus on their professional gaming stuff. But they're doing that through the partnerships and everything else. And if suddenly Content ID comes into play and starts to take away that monetization from them, they're going to be in a real world of hurt, because it's going to be the only other alternative that they'll have is selling T-shirts and mugs and other things of that nature, and you don't make any money off of that. There's only so many T-shirts and mugs you can sell, and it surprises me that Google/YouTube hasn't bought something like that as well, like Spreadshirt or something like that, to which is used by a lot of YouTubers and streamers to Twitchers to sell T-shirts and various other items to supplement their income, or even a Patreon type of thing where it's all donations. You donate to help your creators. I'm surprised that YouTube or Google hasn't started to invest in those, and maybe they will because they'll have the full range of stuff then, and a monopoly will be totally had at that point. So it's distressing from that point of view, and I can see where people are coming from there. So it's one of those toss-ups. It's on one hand, it's a good thing from an infrastructure and from a legitimacy perspective, and on the other hand, it's a really bad thing if you rely on these things for your livelihood. I would like to say that at some point in the future, online content creation would be a career that a lot of people could engage in. But to be honest with you, it still seems like a flash in the pan type of thing. And I think most content creators out there right now are all in the back of their head going, who do it full time, are all in the back of their head going, I'm going to do this for as long as I can, but I'm going to make sure that I save up as much as I can along the way for the rainy day that may eventually happen when all this stuff blows up and nothing can go forward. So those are my thoughts on Twitch YouTube thing. We'll see what happens there. Hopefully it's all good things, and only the positives come out of it. But I'm keeping my ears open, keeping my head optimistic, my brain optimistic. So we'll see. And along those same lines, Nintendo this week announced that they're going to open up their own affiliate program. Now, you may or may not know that Nintendo's been really ornery when it comes to YouTubers, and I don't know if they know about Twitch yet, but at least for YouTubers, they've been really a pain in the neck, claiming all of the monetization of Nintendo videos. Now in December there was the big apocalypse where they started claiming everything under the sun, even the high profile Let's Players who do just exclusively Nintendo stuff, Nintendo games. But then I think they backed off about a couple weeks later when they got the really negative public backlash on it. And it hasn't been, from what I understand, hasn't been as bad lately as it was. There hasn't been as many claims coming down. But you know that YouTube, or Nintendo, I should say, has not been happy. And they've been very vocal about the fact that they haven't been happy with the fact that others are claiming money or monetization on their IP stuff. So this to me has not come as a surprise. I am not shocked by this news that they have decided to come up with their own affiliate program, because they were faced with a PR nightmare and they backed off temporarily to figure out what they were going to do. But you knew that it was still in the back of their head that this is what they wanted, right? Because again, Nintendo is actually struggling as a company right now. Their profits, they've had the worst several quarters right now of the books of record keeping that they've ever had. So it does not surprise me that they're like, okay, we need money. We need money. We have no money. So that is something that's going on. I don't really have an opinion on it, on what they're doing, because I don't play Nintendo games and I don't have any intention of playing them. But it's we'll have to see what comes out of that. It's still very early again to see what actually is going to happen. But basically, they're looking to share the profits of their monetization with the actual YouTubers that are monetizing, which is good for them because now they know that they can get some money off of it and they have a definitive answer. But it may also be a bad thing. We don't know yet. We'll find out as things tend to shake out. So I'm going to keep my eye on it and see what happens, and maybe have a follow-up on it. But I think that will just about do it for this episode of Cube Ramblings. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you next Sunday.